So welcome everyone to my presentation, Insights from a Social Worker, Insurance Coverage and Navigating Care. My name is Erin Checky and I'm a clinical social worker at Michigan Medicine in the Movement Disorders Clinic. So thank you so much for inviting me to present today. And I want to thank all of the conference organizers and to those who are participating today. You know, it's really a privilege to be able to share with you all what I hope is a fruitful discussion and having a better understanding of the resources and help available to you, and of course, the coverage of such services. So to start, just a general disclaimer. So the information and educational content that I talk about in this webinar is meant to promote a general understanding of topics. Such information should not be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. And today I'll be providing an overview of care coverage, including some suggestions for resources that might be helpful. And please know that this information may vary based on your geographic area. So you can always check with your local providers and supports for specific guidance on what may be available to you. And I have no financial disclosures. So today I want to start with a quick introduction to the role of social work. We will then talk about insurance coverage as it relates to physical, occupational, speech therapy, as well as genetic testing, durable medical equipment, and home modifications. I will then be discussing disability insurance and other options that may be available to you should work become difficult. And throughout the presentation, we'll address the limitations and challenges of insurance coverage and provide suggestions for coordinating your care needs. So to start, I want to orient everyone to examples of things a social worker can help with. So many ataxia centers across the nation have a social worker as a member of their multidisciplinary care team. And while the role of a social worker may differ from center to center, I wanted to provide examples of things the social worker might be able to help with. So as you can see on the slide, a social worker can help people with ataxia and their families cope with getting diagnosed and the changes that often result from having a progressive condition. They can really be instrumental in helping to find local resources, providing information, support, and guidance for caregivers, providing information on long-term care planning for the future, and discussion of advanced directives, so those legal documents that we often want to have executed. We can help with connection to resources for coping and assisting with questions about health insurance, prescription medications, disabilities. So clearly, this is not an exhaustive list, but just want to provide examples of things that you may be able to work with a social worker on. And so I would encourage you all to contact your local office, talk to your doctor or nurse about getting connected to a social worker. So to start, we're going to talk about therapies. So we know that therapy can be very beneficial for people in improving, maintaining, preventing, or slowing decline in a person's current level of functioning. And when we discuss therapies, I'm referring to physical, occupational, and speech therapy. So to begin, I just want to briefly orient us to what each of these services provide, along with some examples of how each of these disciplines would work with individuals with ataxia. So physical therapy aims to ease the pain and help you function, move, and live better. So a physical therapist might work with you to address movement and mobility and can really help you work on balance to prevent slips and falls. Occupational therapy can support individuals in helping you to learn and cope with mobility challenges and make adjustments to your home environment if needed. Speech therapy really aims to improve or maintain communication skills and can also address any issues with swallowing. So speech language pathologists can help with carrying out exercises to strengthen your muscles use when speaking. Can actually also teach certain breathing techniques to improve speech. And we know that these therapies are of central importance to people with ataxia and are often needed on a continuous basis, especially when the goal is to maintain function and prevent further decline. So the challenge is that some insurance companies have policies where they'll only cover a certain amount of visits or up to a certain dollar amount, and this is where we can run into some obstacles. So for example, Medicare, a common insurer for people with disabilities, while they don't have a cap on the number of sessions, they do have a threshold amount for certain therapies. So once therapies have cost up to a certain dollar amount, Medicare will be sure to review your case to ensure medical necessity. So again, doesn't mean that you won't be able to get that therapy, just means it may be require more advocacy and may be a little more challenging to get that therapy. And regardless of the type of insurance you have, it's not uncommon for therapies to stop when it is determined that an individual has improved to their maximum level of functioning. And once a person, again, reaches that point, it can become more challenging to get insurance companies to cover services. So this is an issue that many people encounter, is receiving coverage when they need therapy to maintain rather than improve. And so therapy that's needed to maintain functioning is referred to as maintenance therapy. And using this terminology can be really helpful in advocating for continued coverage. So if you experience difficulty with getting continued coverage for therapies, I would encourage you to contact your ordering provider's office and talk with the clinical staff about options and advocacy, because sometimes you'll need documentation from that office justifying your need for continued skilled therapy, again, to maintain function or prevent further decline. Genetic testing is often a topic that comes up in clinic. And when we talk about genetic testing, this is a type of medical test that identifies changes in genes, chromosomes, or proteins. And the results of the genetic test can often confirm or rule out a suspected condition, or again, help determine a person's chance of developing or passing on a condition. And it's available for many hereditary types of ataxia. So genetic testing can really play an important role in determining some options that may be available to you. So for example, some research opportunities and clinical trials might require that you actually have a confirmed diagnosis before being able to participate in certain studies. And the cost of genetic testing really varies based on insurance policy, and genetic testing can be quite costly. So this is a common concern that's cited in clinic. So it, again, varies on your insurance policy, the laboratory completing the testing, who is ordering the genetic testing on your behalf, and also the ordering entity's relationship or agreement with the lab. So as you can see, it's really not clear cut as to whether testing is going to be covered or not by your insurance policy. And insurance coverage often may require pre-authorization or other documentation, including a letter of medical necessity, in order to be covered. And even still, the bill may only be covered in part. So again, this all depends on your insurance policy, the lab, and who is ordering the testing. So my best suggestion would be to discuss your options with your ordering provider and see if there's any assistance available. Another option is that you could always ask for what the self-pay rate is. It often might be cheaper, or if the entity completing the testing offers a sliding scale or income-based assistance. So sometimes there's assistance programs that you can apply for, and also a payment plan may be a good option. There also may be community support and assistance available. So again, always advisable to check with your provider's office about what support may be available in this area. Durable medical equipment. So this is also a common need of individuals with ataxia. So when we talk about durable medical equipment, often referred to as DME for short, we're referring to equipment that helps you with your daily life. So this equipment commonly used can be walkers, canes, manual and power wheelchairs, things of that nature. So there's many companies that sell this type of equipment, and depending on the type of equipment, it is often covered by insurance. Medicare and most other insurance companies will cover DME if it's considered durable, meaning it's able to withstand repeated use, if it serves a medical purpose, if it's appropriate for use in the home, although it can be used outside the home, and also that it's likely to last for 3 years or more. So insurance coverage can also be dictated by what your diagnosis is, your level of medical necessity, your insurance, and of course, what equipment you may already own. It's not uncommon for insurance companies to require additional information or evaluation to approve certain coverage. So again, asking why something wasn't covered if this is an issue is always a good thing. You may also need a physical therapy evaluation to verify the need for a specific piece of equipment. And again, this is where advocacy may be required. There are certain medical equipment and supplies that are not covered by insurance, but again, each plan is different, so always check with your plan. But items often not covered included those that are intended to make things more convenient for you, like grab bars or raised toilet seats. Also, modifications to your home, such as ramps or widened doors for improving access, are usually not covered. But the good news is that there is options available to help pay for the equipment that is often not covered by your health insurance plan. So these options include lending closets or loan closets, where these are places that lend medical equipment to people. So many organizations receive used equipment from members of the community who no longer need it. They then clean the equipment, make sure it's in good working condition, and then are able to lend that equipment out to those in need. Some lend for a certain amount of time, and others are able to lend it until the equipment is no longer needed. Assistive technology websites often have classifieds where you can find used or refurbished equipment for free or even at a discount. Some states also have funding available to help individuals buy assistive devices or medical equipment, and they may distribute those funds in the forms of low interest loans or just outright grants. And finally, veterans benefits and some long-term care policies may also pay for medical equipment not otherwise covered by your health insurance plan. Somewhat related to medical equipment is home modifications. So home modifications referring to those home improvements designed to help maintain someone's independence and prevent accidents. Modifications can range from really simple changes like replacing doorknobs with pull handles to major structural projects such as installing a wheelchair ramp. And before making any modifications, it can be really beneficial to obtain a home safety evaluation to determine what your needs are. So you can talk to your doctor about obtaining an order for a home occupational therapy home safety evaluation. And if you qualify, in order to qualify, you need to be considered homebound, meaning that it requires the assistance of a device or another person to get out of the home. And during that in-home safety evaluation, the occupational therapists are assessing the structure of your home and then can make recommendations to make your home more suitable for you. And so again, this is often covered by insurance, so check with your provider's office about obtaining an order. Home modifications, while not typically covered by insurance, still may be. So again, always a good thing to check. But again, other funding options are available. So these include possible grants in your area or assistance that can be provided based on where you live. You may also qualify for, again, a low interest loan or able to set up a payment plan. Additionally, again, if you're a veteran, VA benefits might help in this area. So please check with your local VA benefits office or medical center to see if you are eligible. Long-term care policies can often assist with home modifications as well. And finally, some state Medicaid programs can cover some home modifications, or you may be eligible for other forms of assistance based on your income. Accommodations and disability. So I want to talk a little bit about what options you may have should work duties become exceedingly difficult. So this is something that I'm commonly talking to individuals and families with about what options are available if they get to a point where work may not be feasible anymore. And the good thing to know is that there are many options available, even to support you before you get to the point where you're needing to file for disability. So the first of which is FMLA. This refers to the Family and Medical Leave Act. And this requires covered employers to provide employees with certain job protections and unpaid leave for qualified medical and family reasons. So your ataxia would qualify you and any family members caring for you for FMLA. And this FMLA time off includes intermittent leave, allowing you, or again, those caring for you, with periodic leave to be able to, again, attend appointments or, again, attend to your care needs. So please, if you are an employee, ask your manager or HR department for the necessary forms needed to have your doctor fill out. Another option available to employees with ataxia is workplace accommodations. So the Americans with Disabilities Act requires employers with 15 or more employees to make reasonable accommodations, as long as it does not present undue hardship to that company, and as long as the employee can perform essential job functions. So again, this means that by law, people with ataxia are protected against discrimination in employment practices. And when we talk about a reasonable accommodation, this is defined as any modification or adjustment to a job or the work environment that will allow you to perform essential job functions. So requests for a more flexible work schedule, a part-time arrangement, or even telecommuting might be options of possible accommodations. And these accommodations requests might require your physician to write a letter or fill out forms. So again, this is where you would talk to your specific employer about what is needed to ask for certain accommodations. And in regards to accommodations, the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, is a great resource to know about. So JAN is a free consulting service that provides individualized workplace accommodation solutions and can really educate callers about what options and rights they have. Another option to pursue is employer-provided disability insurance. So again, this is where you would need to contact your manager or HR department benefits office to see if this is a benefit that you have elected or are eligible for. Your HR and benefits office, again, should be able to guide you through that process of applying for either short-term or long-term disability. Most short-term plans, policies offer coverage between 3 and 6 months, and then they pay, again, a percentage of your earnings. And every policy is different. So again, this is where it's important to talk to your policy about what benefits it offers. Once a short-term policy ends, long-term insurance may be an option, again, if you elected for this. And this process is much the same as short-term in terms of needing paperwork filled out by your doctor. And most insurance plans, long-term insurance policies, provide coverage for 36 months. Lastly, an option would be able to pursue benefits from the federal government. This would include supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance. So these are both benefits offered through the Social Security Administration. So supplemental security income is designed to help individuals with high care needs who have limited income by providing income for basic living. Similar but a little different is Social Security disability insurance, which provides payments to individuals with a disability who have worked long enough and who have paid into Social Security. So to apply for either, you're going to contact Social Security by way of online at your local field office or by calling Social Security directly. A little advice, I've found that if you're really trying to get through to Social Security by calling, it's best to call as soon as the line's open to avoid long wait times. And when you call, you can let them know that you're wanting to apply for benefits, you're not sure what you will qualify for, and again, they'll guide you through that process. Now, during the time of COVID, they're often not doing in-person appointments, or it can be months to get in-person appointments. So really, the easiest way to apply for disability is online. And it's not uncommon for initial applications for disability to be denied. So medical evidence and supporting documentation are really essential for a disability claim to be approved. So really be sure to keep up with those medical appointments, as the documentation from those appointments is really going to be key in getting your case approved. If you are denied for any reason, we recommend working with a lawyer who specializes in disability law. So please contact your provider's office or local community resources for suggestions for a list of lawyers that you can contact. And lastly, I want to pass along some helpful resources to you. So first of which being the Area Agency on Aging. These agencies are a key source of information for older adults and persons with disabilities. So every agency works a little differently, but they're really often able to provide you with resources based on your needs. So, for example, various lists of home modification needs. You can get home agency referrals, facility referrals, and again, other supportive and community services that may be beneficial to you. So they're a key resource. Another option would be to contact your Department of Human Services. So they can offer programs to help you with temporary assistance. And many states' DHS departments have a division of rehab services, which provides support and resources to individuals with disabilities. And lastly, I want to encourage everyone to reach out to your local ataxia clinic or local ataxia supports, right? The National Ataxia Foundation being one of them. So these clinics are going to be key in providing guidance and locating specific services, helping with navigating your care needs, some of which we've addressed in today's talk, and again, providing the advocacy that you need. So I really want to thank everyone for joining me today. I hope this discussion has been helpful in understanding the services and supports available to you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Erin. Thank you so much for being here. What a great presentation that was. So informative for me. I do have a question in the Q&A, but I just want to put a reminder out there for people to type in your questions so I can let Erin know what questions you all have. So Erin, I'm just going to go ahead and start, okay?
Sounds great.
All right, my first question is, how do you obtain a social worker? I'm on Medicare and private insurance.
Yeah, so usually, kind of working with a social worker is kind of independent of any insurance you have. That is, if you're working with a social worker in the role of more of a care coordinator, of course, social workers can be therapists, and that is a billable service. But often, kind of in my presentation today, was more talking about social work as kind of that role of a care coordinator, kind of that resource hub, and can also be linkage to referrals. So obviously, I realize that everyone across the country doesn't have the luxury of being connected with a large ataxia clinic, which may include a social worker. So I would say, first and foremost, if you are, attached to a clinic, ask your provider if they are connected with a social worker, if they work with one, and if not, I think again the Area Agency on Aging is a great go-to. Now, it might not be someone that is like dedicated and assigned to you, but likely going to be a key, at least a consult to connect you with resources. Furthermore, if you are in need of more intensive assistance, I think asking, again, Area Agency on Aging, or doing your own internet search for a geriatric case manager. Now, that is something that would be an out-of-pocket cost, but again, very much can be like intensive care coordinator and very much be with you through applying for different benefits, kind of mapping out your care options and really helping you pursue those options. So I would say that that would be another option in terms of getting in touch with somebody.
Great, thank you. I have another question here. It's a little longer, so hold on. When do you talk to your manager or HR about your ataxia? It goes on to say, I live in California, and during the pandemic, my symptoms worsened, and my work is working at home until May. They have a cutoff date. I need to stay working at home. Doctor is signing an accommodation for me.
Yeah, so I think, sounds as though, this will be a conversation that's coming up. I mean, I always encourage, it's very independent and, individualized in terms of when to bring this up with your employer. Right, you have rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act in that you don't need to disclose. However, if your disability does interfere with your ability to perform essential work functions, then your employer, is allowed to ask you specific questions. But if you're going to your HR department and it sounds like there might be already an accommodations in place, then inherently there will need to be a conversation with your direct manager about what those accommodations are, as they're going to be the ones supporting you with following up on those accommodations. So again, it's very individualized. There's also, obviously we all have different relationships with our employers and our supervisors and managers. So sometimes those can be very supportive conversations and sometimes they can be tough conversations. So also, starting with your benefits office could be important because your benefits office should not be sharing anything with your direct employer. That should be a separate conversation. So again, we know that this, unfortunately, there may be unanticipated disclosures. So I think, again, if you're like Jan would be a great place to call for some of these more like nuanced questions and to be kind of a good sounding board for some of these scenarios about accommodations or when to disclose or how to disclose.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question here in the chat, and don't forget to put your questions in, people. How do you determine when it's time to apply for disability? They have worked their whole life and they were laid off due to the pandemic and is trying to find jobs and qualified for, but physically cannot do the jobs as before. Prior employer frequently broke ADA, so I'm anxious about it all.
Yeah, understandable. I'm so sorry about your experience. So that's a good question. Again, very individualized. So, I think if you can talk to someone, whether it be a lawyer, a care coordinator, a social worker, kind of about your unique situation, that would be best. But I think, with a self-assessment of what is the like realistic expectations of yourself in the market for being able to, get a job in your field or a job in another field, because there are some important things to note. In order to qualify for disability, you have to have worked 5 out of the last 10 years. So unfortunately, we see people who are searching, but it's been so long, and then they go to apply and they may not qualify. So I think so again, consultation is really important to make sure that you're not missing any important windows for application. But again, I think that this is individualized in terms of, again, can I realistically, physically, mentally go back to work? And is the market going to support that? And so, this is where the exploration comes in of, yeah, maybe it is time to apply. And again, we don't want to miss important windows because disability, again, there's kind of logistical assessment that goes into whether you will be granted disability, and then more of, again, that more medical functional assessment. But again, they're going to make sure that, okay, kind of bullet list criteria, and a lot of disability applications are thrown out automatically because they don't meet that initial criteria. And again, one of which is that you have to have worked 5 out of the last 10 years. I will say there's a caveat in that if you are younger, that you don't have to have as many work credits. So depending on your age, that 5 out of the last 10 years may vary.
Okay, sounds good. Please submit your questions. I'm happy to ask them for you. I get a lot of questions at NAF because I answer the phone and email. I do get a lot of questions that are social worker related questions that I'm kind of always unable to answer. I will say one of my top questions I get is about disability and being rejected, and people are frustrated. And I know you touched upon it in your presentation, but just any other insights or tips that I could learn about, everyone else could learn about?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly often encourage people to apply on their own without a disability lawyer. That being said, if you do work with a disability advocate or a disability lawyer, it may increase your chances of getting that initial approval. If you look up, again, not ataxia or diagnosis specific, but if you look up general statistics, it will say, I think like 65% of initial applications are denied. But again, most of that is just because you don't necessarily meet that like initial like criteria. And then if you do pass that kind of test, then that goes into the more kind of functional assessment. And that is, again, where follow-up with doctor is really important, and to have that medical evidence supporting your limitations and the fact that you can't work. Because again, disability, they do look at your education, they do look at your work history, but they're not necessarily using the test of, can you do your job and your functions, or can you do a lesser job or a different job? So if you have a master's in teaching, maybe they'll take that into consideration a little bit, but they'll also say, could you be a ticket taker? Could you be a front desk associate? So again, there's, some nuances. It's not as clear cut. So that's, again, why a lot of disability applications are denied. Again, you might not have enough medical evidence. So, again, continued follow-up with the doctor. And then again, they're using different standards to judge whether you qualify for disability. And if your initial application is denied, I mean, surely that is a great point to get a disability lawyer involved. And so again, going to local area agency on aging or your local provider to get a referral, or again, just doing your own internet search, type in your city and disability lawyers in your area.
And on that, do you know, with disability lawyers, are there some who do pro bono work? Because I mean, I know there are some people out there who are concerned about finances.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly I would say, again, internet search, local resources about legal assistance. In my experience, I have not had as much luck in finding completely pro bono disability law. But I will say they don't take any money up front. So the way disability lawyers traditionally work is that they'll take about 20 or 25% of your payout if approved. So, I mean, again, there's really, no cost if you're denied. It's that if you're approved, they'll take a back percentage of your back pay, which again is very, obviously everyone's financial situation is different. But when you think about the return on investment, I think it's high because yes, there's a payout but then you'll have that payment for the rest, of your life, but hopefully, or again, until that disability renewal comes.
Great, thank you. I have a question here. Would I want to apply for disability sooner or later? I'm still working part-time, but don't want to be out of money. I don't want to be out of money. I do qualify for, currently 42 years old.
Yeah, and this is the kind of a dilemma that is, I hear a lot. And unfortunately, the fact that you are working will automatically disqualify you for disability. And that's kind of this catch-22 is that, well, I need to work because I need some income to live. I can't not work. But you essentially kind of have to stop working because if they see that you're working, well, inherently, that's not going to qualify you because by definition, by applying for disability and receiving disability, that means that you can't work. So it is this catch-22. And again, if your employer has short or long term, that's kind of the design to kind of tide you over in between that stopping work and starting that Social Security disability. But again, unfortunately, we know that not all employers offer that short and long term. So it does put people in a really difficult financial place where, again, some people really can't afford to stop working, but again, it's not sustainable. And so unfortunately, like there's really no good options sometimes if you don't have that short or long term. Again, so, that would be a great time to apply for your state Medicaid to at least have insurance coverage. Sometimes states, foundations will have short-term assistance to help with rent. So again, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a very creative and piecemeal approach to kind of meet your needs during that time when that disability application is pending. And again, unfortunately, that can take months to years depending on your situation. So I think, again, given kind of that kind of nuanced situation, that would be great to kind of consult with a disability lawyer to see if they have any additional insights based on your case. I will say I've worked with some great disability lawyers, and if you call them, they'll kind of do free one-off consultations on the phone, or, kind of pass by your case and give you some feedback directly without any cost. So that might be worth a phone call or two to kind of talk about your unique situation.
Great, thank you. I know you touched on like fixing things in the home, but do you guys deal with when people are transitioning from maybe home to like a long-term care facility, and how it, like, what are some great resources that, we could point people to for that?
Yeah, so transitions of care, thinking about, going from one setting to another. So, thinking about, again, home to the hospital, hospital to a subacute rehab or an acute rehab, from acute rehab back home. So all of that, again, is a critical time for care, because we know things get lost in translation. The care coordination piece between you and your providers, is a lot to keep up with. So again, I think, making sure that your provider, your, main neurologist involved in your care is kind of privy to where you are at with all of those transitions, and really, bringing them in that process, as they can kind of, again, help with facilitating some referrals or services to make sure that you're getting the care, the level of care that you need. Again, you're oftentimes, depending on the level of care, right, if you're in a hospital or a subacute rehab facility, or they will have inpatient case managers, care coordinators. So definitely, if you do find yourself in a facility other than home, please, please, please ask to speak with a care manager. Again, could be a social worker, could be a nurse, could be somebody else who's kind of holding that case manager role, to talk about like plans home. Because again, these are conversations that they're gonna, the medical team is gonna set you up with a plan, but you really have to think about, okay, is this plan realistic? Do I have the resources, the time to kind of enact this plan? And so, this is where it's also really important to ask questions like, okay, do I know what I need? Do I have my medications? Like, what services can I expect in the home? Who's going to set them up? What training do I need before I get home? So again, just thinking about key things like, am I going to be set up for success wherever I am? And again, care coordinators, social workers can be key. So if you're, not connected to a doctor's office, but you find yourself in a hospital, please ask that hospital to be connected to the care manager, to make sure that you have services in place to best support you.
Great, thank you. Let's see, any other questions? I'll do another one here then. On the same topic of long-term care, I get a lot of questions about younger people who need to transition to long-term care, but family members are maybe concerned about them going into like a nursing home where it tends to be, elderly heavy. Are there any options out there for these transitions, or how do people go about finding them? Is it just kind of like a website search, or in your areas, or?
So when we think about kind of long-term care planning, right, that involves a lot. And a key part of that conversation, right, is planning for care that we may need now, but also in the future, right? So we may be very independent at home right now, but what resources are available in the home and in the community to best support us and allow us to live, the best quality of life we can. So area agencies on aging, again, are key, because they're going to be connected and have resources about, again, not only in-home supports, in-home assistance, home health companies, programs to be able to pay for that in-home help, but also options in your community if it's maybe no longer safe to stay at home. So that could include assisted living, memory care, again, that skilled nursing And so again, right, a lot of options. And so it can be helpful to, again, start with your area agency on aging to talk about what your needs are, and then to then determine what level of care may be, most suitable to meet your needs. And then they can really be key on coaching you. Okay, here are the steps involved. And often it can just, for example, if you are, increasing needs and needing kind of that 24/7 support, it could be a matter of, picking up the phone and calling some long-term care facilities and talking about the services they have, payment for those services, kind of what sets them apart from other similar facilities. So again, a lot of it is that kind of research, and it can be key to really be engaging in this before the needs are there. So, right, we oftentimes we're coming to these situations in a crisis, but it can be helpful to start exploring options for the future now, so that we kind of have a landscape of, okay, what are our options? When might I want to access those options, and how would I go about doing that? And again, if you are connected to an ataxia clinic, talking to your provider and hopefully getting linked to a social worker or care manager. But if not, I mean, again, every area should have an area agency on aging. They're not all created equal. So in terms, some might be more intensive assistance, some might be just referrals and resources. And, it really requires you to do a lot of that lead work. But again, really great key places to start in this kind of information and researching.
Thank you. That was helpful. Okay, I have a question here. If you've been on disability for a while, can you work part-time and make a certain amount of money?
Yes. So this is a caveat. So it's like if you're working now and applying, you can't really get disability. But if you have disability, yes, you're actually incentivized to try to go back to work. Right. I mean, disability by nature is a program to kind of help support individuals who can't work. But again, the goal, at least from the program, Social Security's goal is to get you back to work. So they really want you to try to go back to work. So after receiving disability, you kind of have this trial work period where you can work. And I want to say it's 9 months where you can essentially work as much as you want and earn. There's no earning limit. However, after that trial work period, you cannot earn more than what they refer to as a substantial gainful amount, SGA, and that's around 1,300 for individuals, about 2,000 some if you are blind, or again, I think have certain other conditions. So yes. If you are, again, outside that trial work period and you want to try to see if you can, again, go back to the workforce, you can. But again, the minute after your trial work period that you earn above that substantial gainful amount, then benefits for that month may be taken away. So again, these are like the nuances where kind of more legal consultation is key.
Great, thank you. All right, I think we have time for one last question, and here it is. If you have an in-home business that is commission-based and income varies greatly, is there a money amount that you can't exceed if you're able to qualify for disability insurance per month?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, your earnings like before being granted disability, because disability is not a means-based program, should not count. But I'm going to interpret this question as if you have disability and again have your own business. That is a good question. I think again it's usually like 1,300 per month. So I would say I don't think they like average it out. So again, this would be a nuanced question, I think, for a legal expert that I don't feel 100% on. But again, knowing that it's 1,300 per month for that substantial gainful amount, I think on months, knowing that your income varies on months that it went kind of above that substantial gainful amount, I think you might be at risk for losing disability benefits.
Okay, great. Well, boom, there it is, 4 o'clock. Thank you, Erin, for answering all these great questions. I know I learned a lot today, so thank you. You were a great resource to have. Any
thank you.
words you want to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, thank you all for tuning in. Again, there's, social workers can be really key in that care coordination. I always say that you are your own best advocate. Although we know that advocates also need advocacy. So I think, again, the takeaway should be that, it's good to explore early, kind of make sure you are accessing all the benefits that you can. And also, don't be shy on advocating on behalf of yourself to meet your needs.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a good day. See you guys
Thank you.
tomorrow. Bye.